Okay, so this is going to be a breakdown for Pacquiao v Barrios that's happening this weekend. Of course, another stacked weekend of boxing. You've got Dubois and Usyk too. You've got, I believe, Bam fighting at super flyweight. Bam Rodriguez fighting at super flyweight, and of course, the welterweight world title fight between Pacquiao and Barrios for the WBC welterweight title. Now, of course, Pacquiao is old, but he's a boxing legend. He's boxing's only eight weight world division champion, eight weight division world champion. Sorry, a feat that will likely never be repeated. You know, like people underestimate how difficult that is. Starting at the weight he started at to win belts all the way up to 154 is insane, an insane feat. That being said, Manny Pacquiao is far removed from those days. Far removed from those days becoming champion against Antonio Margarito at 154. That's well over a decade ago now at this point. And you've got Barrios, who's a lot younger, a lot fresher, not been through as many wars as Pacquiao. But at the same time, out of the current welterweight world champions, Barrios is probably most beatable. Sorry. Of course, I say that because he has been beaten before. Of course, he had lost to Gervonta Davis, stopped by Gervonta Davis, and also lost to Keith Thurman, a past his prime Keith Thurman, who had already been beaten by Manny Pacquiao. Right? But of course, Barrios' notable wins is your Dennis Ugas, who is an opponent that Manny Pacquiao also shares with Barrios, as your Dennis Ugas actually beat Manny Pacquiao. Now, what you want to take from that, I don't know, because boxing math rarely works, and we all know styles make fights. But Dennis Ugas is a boxer that's constantly top five, fringe world champion level boxer, and he's tricky. But he's been beaten before. Like he's been lost to Barrios. So Pacquiao would have been looking to try and get a win there, but ultimately, your Dennis Ugas had too much for Pacquiao. I mean, your Dennis Ugas is no spring chicken as well. Pacquiao had his moments against Ugas, but Ugas ultimately proved to be too slick. Barrios isn't a slick boxer, in my opinion. So if you're going to outbox Manny Pacquiao, then maybe you've got a chance, because your Dennis Ugas, like I said, him in his own right is a veteran and has got a lot of tricks up his sleeve. He's very slick, a very tricky veteran. Whereas Barrios is someone who got stopped by Gervonta Davis, who, in reality, should be fighting at lightweight. So Barrios is a guy who's fighting at 140 against Pacquiao, who got stopped by a guy who is really a 130 pounder. That being said, of course, Tank isn't your normal 130-pound fighter. This dude can bang. We all know Tank is a monstrous puncher. Probably the most monstrous puncher we've seen at the lower weight divisions in a very long time. So getting stopped by him in the 11th round, just sort of like, I kind of hear it, but do you know what I mean? If you're getting stopped by a 130-pound fighter, even a Manny Pacquiao at this age, I don't fancy you getting hit by. It really all depends on how much of that prime Pacquiao is still in there. Is really what it comes down to. Because if you've got the Pacquiao that beat Adrian Broner, that beat Keith Thurman, that boxer's definitely got a chance against Barrios. But if you're getting the Pacquiao who we saw most recently against your Dennis Ugas, who ultimately was just a step or two too slow to come out on top and win that fight. And Barrios is a guy who's a young fighter who's defending his world title now. Best believe Barrios he's coming to bang, right? And he's coming to fight. Barrios hasn't got a ton of good names on his resume. He'll be looking to add Manny Pacquiao to that resume. What an opportunity it is for Barrios, right? And like I said, of course, Pacquiao is old. But if anyone at Pacquiao's age can become world champion, it's Manny Pacquiao. It's Manny Pacquiao. And I think people are forgetting how special of a boxer we've got on our hands here. I think, like I said, he's had some bad performances. Not even bad performances, just performances where, he lost. Like your Dennis Ugas beat him, he was a step too much for him. We've seen performances like that. But then we've seen performances like Adrian Broner. We've seen performances like Keith Thurman, where he dropped Keith Thurman early. Keith Thurman, the unbeaten world champion. Yeah, that Keith Thurman. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, ultimately, realistically, I do think Barrios is going to win. I think Barrios is going to have a bit too much for him. I don't, I don't think he'll stop him, although he could, because Barrios is a bit of a puncher, and his record doesn't may not really, sort of show that because he's not stopped any high level opponents, really. But how high level is an old Manny Pacquiao? We're gonna find out. Ultimately, we're gonna find out how much Manny Pacquiao still got left in the tank. But my instinct is to go with Barrios. I mean, purely because Manny Pacquiao doesn't even necessarily really deserve this title shot. He's not fought in years. He's not won in years against Barrios, who's just coming off a split draw um, early this year. Sorry, late last year in November 24. You know, and again, the guy who he drew to, again, he's not got the resume of Manny Pacquiao. Who does? Who does have the resume of Manny Pacquiao? But I'm gonna go with Barrios to retain his world title here. I think it'll be competitive at moments. I think Pacquiao's gonna come to fight. He's gonna box in moments. He's gonna box in moments because I don't care how old you are at this age. Manny Pacquiao's not going out there to steamroll a guy for 12 rounds. I seriously doubt that's going to happen. So we're going to see a more reserved Pacquiao that's going to look to pick his moments more. And against a guy like Barrios, who I think Barrios is going to come to, he's going to come and try and steamroll Pacquiao. So it's going to be a tough night for Pacquiao. But yeah, I'm going to go with Barrios to retain his WBC World Lightweight title. If you guys think Pacquiao's got a chance in this, I think he's got a chance, but do you think he can win? That's the real question. Do you think Pacquiao can win this fight? Let me know in the comments below. Another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.